Alright, we're gonna try this again. I don't know what happened a couple of minutes ago. I think there was some technical difficulties. Let me just check the live really quick so that way make sure everything's up and running. But I apologize. We're gonna have to start this live all over because I'm definitely gonna have to delete that last one. Something went out with the sound, so we're gonna get back to it. Let's get right in it. These past couple of years hasn't been easy. Good, bad, or indifferent, it was worth it. Throughout my journey, I had so many inspirations, so many things that made me see things in a different light, even view myself from a different perspective, understanding that I don't have to be just another statistic, that I can seek to be who I want to be, not who they set out for me to be. With that being said, this is my response to the legendary Pedro Petri's Puerto Rican obituary, Puerto Rican resurrection. Hold up, what's going on? We've let too much time pass. It's been going on for far too long, struggling just to survive. Things seem so wrong. We worked, we were always on time. We were never late, just trying to survive. If it wasn't for one, Miguel, Milagro, Olga, Manuel, I would still be in denial. All dying for an American dream, waiting for their lottery numbers to hit, the promotion that never came and the system that never gave a fuck from the beginning. So understanding and learning everything they struggled through, why do we continue to keep the cycle going? While screaming, yo soy boricua, pa que tú lo sepa. Please tell me what good does that do if we continue to contribute to the system that has us where we're at? And I'm not saying you gotta be the next Captain Puerto Rico, I'm not saying all that. But let's look at the facts. So from 1493 until 1898, Spain ruled the island of Borinquen. And within that time, we'd had massive genocide. So many people died on both sides. And what do I mean by both sides? Our Afro and Taino side that we could never deny because we hold with so much pride everything they went through just to survive, while the conquistadors took the whole island on a ride, committing so many criminal acts that words can never describe. 1898, here comes big old Tío Sam, el savior de Puerto Rico, decreasing the currency by 40%. Cause who needs to survive when you got Tío Sam's checks by your side? Can't forget about the imposement of citizenship, forcing us to rely, while Tío Sam takes a ride on the road of taxation without representation, and that comes with a lot of exploitation. Oh, what a great nation of which we reside. But what I realize, if you remove us from history, we don't see a future. This is why it's important to understand who is Pedro Avisu Campos, who is Arturo Alfonso Chambre, who is Lolita Lebron, who is Ramon Emeterio Betances, who is Mariana Bracetti, who are the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, who are the Young Lords. All representation of greatness, all in their own right. But we are them and they are us, fighting for the same cause, liberation, self-determination, with no limitations. So we won't be dying, hating the make-believe steaks or the bulletproof rice and beans, or waiting for the supervisor to die to get that promotion. We will die freeing our bodies without having to use physical strength, but by arming ourselves with knowledge and education, not just for now, but for the future. Viva Puerto Rico libre, pa'lante, siempre pa'lante. Salute, we back at it. Had a little bit of technical difficulties a few minutes ago. The audio went out, but we here. Like I said, I apologize, guys. It's been a little while since I've been on. It's been about like a month and a half, 2 months since we did our last sit-in. We're gonna get back to it because I got a little pushback. You know, a couple of my followers reached out and said, yo, you ever going to finish the book? And I'm like, you know what? Let me get back to it. Let me get to do what I gotta do, and let me get the people what they want and what they need. But salute to everybody. We're gonna pick up where we left off. We were listening to the Huey P. Newton Reader I think this is part 5 for us. We have about 6 hours and 39 minutes left. We're probably gonna do like an hour and a half or so today, and then we'll pick up some more tomorrow. I'm trying to be a little bit more consistent. I had to do a little bit of rearranging. I don't know if you guys could tell. I had to do it because of the podcast. So if you haven't checked out the 1493 Effect podcast on YouTube, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, go check that out. Me and my partner Ian Morales, my deputy chairman, my national minister of defense. I was about to say deputy chairman, minister of defense. We do a podcast together here in Connecticut in New Haven. We're going to open the floor a little bit more to open up to more interviews while we do the podcast, giving our insights, our opinions on certain things, systemically, locally, community organizing, a place to be able to have a platform to speak other than the book club. So go check out the 1493 Effect. It's super dope. But without further ado, we're going to get right into it. The Huey P. Newton Reader, y'all. Salute. Let's get it.
On the defection of Eldridge Cleaver from the Black Panther Party and the defection of the Black Panther Party from the Black community. April 17, 1971. The Black Panther Party bases its ideology and philosophy on a concrete analysis of concrete conditions, using dialectical materialism as our analytical method. As dialectical materialists, we recognize that contradictions can lead to development. The internal struggle of opposites based upon their unity causes matter to have motion as a part of the process of development. We recognize that nothing in nature stands outside of dialectics, even the Black Panther Party. But we welcome these contradictions because they clarify and advance our struggle. We had a contradiction with our former Minister of Information, Eldridge Cleaver, but we understand this as necessary to our growth. Out of this contradiction has come new growth and a return to the original vision of the party. Early in the development of the Black Panther Party, I wrote an essay titled The Correct Handling of a Revolution. This was in response to another contradiction, the criticisms raised against the party by the Revolutionary Action Movement, RAM. At that time, RAM criticized us for our above-ground action, openly displaying weapons and talking about the necessity for the community to arm itself for its own self-defense. RAM said that they were underground and saw this as the correct way to handle a revolution. I responded to them by pointing out that you must establish your organization above ground so that the people can relate to it in a way that will be positive and progressive for them.
Listen.
When you go underground without doing this, you bury yourself so deeply that the people can neither relate to nor contact you. Then the terrorism of the underground organization will be just that, striking fear into the hearts of the very people whose interest the organization claims to be defending, because the people cannot relate to them and there is nobody there to interpret their actions. You have to set up a program of practical action and be a model for the community to follow and appreciate. The original vision of the party was to develop a lifeline to the people by serving their needs and defending them against their oppressors, who come to the community in many forms, from armed police to capitalist exploiters.
Listen.
We knew that this strategy would raise the consciousness of the people and also give us their support. Then, if we were driven underground by the oppressors, the people would support us and defend us. They would know that in spite of the oppressors' interpretations, our only desire was to serve their true interests, and they would defend us. In this manner, we might be forced underground, but there would be a lifeline to the community that would always sustain us, because the people would identify with us and not with our common enemy. For a time, the Black Panther Party lost its vision and defected from the community. With the defection of Eldridge Cleaver, however, we can move again to a full-scale development of our original vision and come out of the twilight zone which the party has been in during the recent past. The only reason that the party is still in existence at this time, the only reason that we have been able to survive the repression of the party and the murder of some of our most advanced comrades is because of the 10-point program, our survival program. Our programs would be meaningless and insignificant if they were not community programs. This is why it is my opinion that as long as the Black community and oppressed people are found in North America, the Black Panther Party will last. The party will survive as a structured vehicle because it serves the true interests of oppressed people and administers to their needs. This was the original vision of the party.
Listen up.
The original vision was not structured by rhetoric nor by ideology, but by the practical needs of the people. And its dreamers were armed with an ideology that provided a systematic method of analysis of how best to meet those needs.
And I think that's in today's activist world, a lot of us, a lot of activists sometimes are so consumed with their vision on how things should be that they're missing a huge component of what the reality is. And it's like, it's not just how you see it, it's what the people, what the masses need, what caters to the masses, what helps the people. And I think sometimes a lot of us get caught up in a lot of the philosophy and ideology and glorifying and, mystifying all of these elements. And it's like, what do the people want? I think we need to start there. What do the people want? I tell people all the time, I can't say I speak for the masses because I'm only in small groups of people. I only can have conversations with so many amount of individuals per day or even in my lifetime. And that still doesn't equal up to what the population of this country or nation is. So when we really say we speak for the masses, do we really take the time to understand what the masses really want? Or are we projecting our views, our visions, our ideologies onto the masses and saying that's what they want? I think we get caught up sometimes, but that's my opinion.
When Bobby Seale and I came together to launch the Black Panther Party, we had observed many groups. Most of them were so dedicated to rhetoric and artistic rituals that they had withdrawn from living in the 20th century. Sometimes their analyses were beautiful, but they had no practical programs that would translate these understandings to the people.
That's still relevant today. We have to find a vessel. We have to find a way to convert what we're trying to say where the masses can really understand and comprehend what we're trying to say. A lot what happens with activists is that we get caught up in this intellectualizing conversations or vocabulary, and we forget that the masses doesn't necessarily relate to that type of language. And to have somebody interested in what you're trying to do or to hear you out, you have to be relatable. You have to speak to people on their time. There's a time and a place to be able to speak to individuals, and how to engage with an individual is based off your patience.
When they did try to develop practical programs, they often failed because they lacked a systematic ideology which would help them make concrete analyses of concrete conditions and gain a full understanding of the community and its needs. When I was in Donald Warden's Afro-American Association, I watched him try to make a reality of community control through Black capitalism.
Listen up.
But Warden did not have a systematic ideology, and his attempts to initiate his program continually frustrated him and the community. They did not know why capitalism would not work for them, since it had worked for other ethnic groups. When we formed the party, we did so because we wanted to put theory and practice together in a systematic manner. We did this through our basic 10-point program. In actuality, it was a 20-point program, with the practice expressed in what we want and the theory expressed in what we believe. This program was designed to serve as a basis for a structured political vehicle. The actions we engaged in at that time were strictly strategic actions for political purposes. They were designed to mobilize the community. Any action which does not mobilize the community toward the goal is not a revolutionary action. The action might be a marvelous statement of courage, but if it does not mobilize the people toward the goal of a higher manifestation of freedom, it is not making a political statement and could even be counter-revolutionary. We realized at a very early point in our development that revolution is a process. It is not a particular action, nor is it a conclusion. It is a process. This is why when feudalistic slavery wiped out chattel slavery, feudalism was revolutionary. This is why when capitalism wiped out feudalism, capitalism was revolutionary. The concrete analysis of concrete conditions will reveal the true nature of the situation and increase our understanding. This process moves in a dialectical manner, and we understand the struggle of the opposites based upon their unity. Many times people say that our 10-point program is reformist, but they ignore the fact that revolution is a process. We left the program open-ended so that it could develop and people could identify with it.
Listen.
We did not offer it to them as a conclusion. We offered it as a vehicle to move them to a higher level. In their quest for freedom and in their attempts to prevent the oppressor from stripping them of all the things they need to exist, the people see things as moving from A to B to C. They do not see things as moving from A to Z. In other words, they have to see first some basic accomplishments in order to realize that major successes are possible. Much of the time, the revolutionary...
And I like to call that show and tell. I'm going to show you and you're going to tell me how impactful that was. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do and how it means something. And that's going to influence you to want to be a part of. That's how a lot of people view things nowadays, right? Because we've been so indoctrinated to believe everything that's told to us, and always there's somebody selling some shit to us, right? So when our people come up to us and they're trying to do the same thing and present us something of whatever it is, if you don't show us what it is, we're less likely to help you or indulge in whatever you're trying to get us to indulge in, because we don't see the value in it. We hear what you're trying to say, but we don't see what you're actually doing.
To guide them into this understanding, but he can never take them from A to Z in one jump because it is too far ahead. Therefore, when the revolutionary begins to indulge in Z, or final conclusions, the people do not relate to him. Therefore, he is no longer a revolutionary if revolution is a process. This makes any action or function which does not promote the process non-revolutionary. When the party went to Sacramento, when the party faced down the policeman in front of the office of Ramparts magazine, and when the party patrolled the police with arms, we were acting at a time, 1966, when the people had given up the philosophy of nonviolent direct action and were beginning to deal with sterner stuff. We wanted them to see the virtues of disciplined and organized armed self-defense rather than spontaneous and disorganized outbreaks and riots. There were police alert patrols all over the country, but we were the first armed police patrol. We called ourselves the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. In all of this, we had political and revolutionary objectives in mind, but we knew that we could not succeed without the support of the people. Our strategy was based on a consistent ideology, which helped us to understand the conditions around us. We knew that the law was not prepared for what we were doing, and policemen were so shocked that they didn't know what to do. We saw that the people felt a new pride and strength because of the example we set for them, and they began to look toward the vehicle we were building for answers. Later, we dropped the term self-defense from our name and just became the Black Panther Party. We discouraged actions like Sacramento and police observations because we recognized that these were not the things to do in every situation or on every occasion. We never called these revolutionary actions. The only time an action is revolutionary is when the people relate to it in a revolutionary way. If they will not use the example you set, then no matter how many guns you have, your action is not revolutionary. The gun itself is not necessarily revolutionary because the fascists carry guns. In fact, they have more guns. A lot of so-called revolutionaries simply do not understand the statement by Chairman Mao that political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. They thought Chairman Mao said political power is the gun, but the emphasis is on grows. The culmination of political power is the ownership and control of the land and the institutions thereon so that we can then get rid of the gun. That is why Chairman Mao makes the statements that we are advocates of the abolition of war. We do not want war, but war can only be abolished through war. And in order to get rid of the gun, it is necessary to take up the gun. He is always speaking of getting rid of it. If he did not look at it in those terms, then he surely would not be revolutionary. You know?
Yeah, this reminds me when we started rewriting the 13-point program and platform that we adopted from the elders, their 13-point program and platform. That was one of the points that we had there, right, for a moment. It was like something of the nature that there's no revolution without like an armed revolution. And I sat on it for a while, and then I had to give a major pushback on it because I don't believe revolution is only an arms revolution. I don't believe in that. I've watched every revolution that I've read, right? I'm not going to say watch, but I've read about a lot of revolutions, and the downfall in a lot of revolutions where it's nothing but force but no plan, right? When you quick to react instead of coming up with the structure that's going to be able to sustain and last, right? You can watch it with a lot of revolutionaries, you know. Even if you ask my opinion, Simone Boulevard, one of his biggest downfall, it was, you know, pushing the line, and not realizing that he's not taking the time properly to be able to set this foundation and structure, and that's only going to come with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And if you don't have these tools, chaos only causes more chaos. You know, fighting only causes more fighting. If you can't strategize and come up with a plan that's sufficient, you're going to be a victim of your own doing. And if, in my opinion, that was Simone Boulevard's downfall. Not because he wasn't a revolutionary, it's because he couldn't see the things around him because he was so adamant about one direction, leaving him in that state of ignorance, because the state of ignorance is not knowing. You don't know what's going on around you if you focus on one thing over there or something over there. But what about over here? So I don't believe armed liberation is the only means to revolution. I don't believe in that. I believe it's a combination. I think it's something there with self-defense, obviously, but 90% of it is strategizing, knowledge, and education. The blind can't lead the blind, and that's not throwing no isms or anything. I'm just giving you a quote. If I don't know and you don't know, where we gonna go? Not many places.
The gun, by all revolutionary principles, is a tool to be used in our strategy.
Oh, really quick, everybody on TikTok, we are live on YouTube. You can go check it out, AfroTaino 88. We are live. Don't check out the video categories. If you came in late and you want to catch up, go check out the live section on my page. Again, it's AfroTaino 88, the same way on TikTok. It is on YouTube. So if you guys miss this book, or because I do it in sequences, I haven't been on live in a couple of months, 2 months, because I was in Puerto Rico, but we picking up right where we left off. So if you missed anything, you can always check the last video. It's 2 months out, but you can see all the contents leading up to where we at right now. So salute to everybody tapping in on TikTok. I see a couple of people popping in. Salute BGP. Salute everybody on YouTube too. I got a couple of people on there. Thank you. It's a different camera view, so you might want to check out YouTube.
It's not an end in itself. This was a part of the original vision of the Black Panther Party. I had asked Eldridge Cleaver to join the party a number of times, but he did not join until after the confrontation with the police in front of the office of Ramparts magazine, where the police were afraid to go for their guns. Without my knowledge, he took this as the revolution and the party.
No.
But in our basic program, it was not until point 7 that we mentioned the gun, and this was intentional. We were trying to build a political vehicle through which the people could express their revolutionary desires. We recognized that no party or organization can make the revolution, only the people can.
Facts.
All we could do was act as a guide to the people, because revolution is a process that moves in a dialectical manner.
This is why it's important. When we watched the other day, live on TikTok, when we watched Pa'lante Siempre Pa'lante, when Felipe Luciano was like, when they finally got together and decided to, organize, they went to the people and asked what the people want, and he was like, they were like, forget about the political this, the political that. Our issue is the garbage. And he's like, damn, all this revolution, all this romance in the air, and to pick up garbage? Because you're looking for something astronomical to impact. You don't understand that we have to do stepping stones. And how do you build up the community? How do you build up the community trust? By catering to the community's issues. Smaller issues become bigger issues, and you attack them together as a unit. So understand what the people need and how to get to that is crucial.
At one point, one thing might be proper, but the same action could be improper at another point. We always emphasized a concrete analysis of conditions, and then an appropriate response to these conditions as a way of mobilizing the people and leading them to higher levels of consciousness. People constantly thought that we were security guards or community police. This is why we dropped the term self-defense from our name and directed the attention of the people to the fact that the only way they would get salvation was through their control of the institutions that serve the community. This would require that they organize a political vehicle which would keep their support and endorsement through its survival programs of service. They would look to it for answers and guidance. It would not be an organization that runs candidates for political office, but it would serve as a watchman over the administrators whom the people have placed in office. Because the Black Panther Party grows out of the conditions and needs of oppressed people, we are interested in everything the people are interested in, even though we may not see these particular concerns as the final answers to our problems. We will never run for political office, but we will endorse and support those candidates who are acting in the true interest of the people.
This was written by Huey P. So I think sometimes when we study a lot of these revolutionary leaders, a lot of these scholars, a lot of people who fought during that time, we only study the individuals, but not a lot of their literature. And it's also important to highlight this was his stance at one point, and many things shifted and changed, man. Even when Huey fell, when he fell back a little bit and Elaine Brown took over, even though there's controversies with that, but I wasn't in that time, so I'm not a person to judge. I believe she ran for office. I believe a couple of individuals ran for office after that. I think even now you have a couple of Panthers who are in office that we don't really speak about. But let's keep going.
Even provide campaign workers for them and do voter registration and basic precinct work. This would not be out of a commitment to electoral politics. However,
My bad. I want to rewind that 30 seconds. Mala mia.
We are interested in everything the people are interested in, even...
Oh, hold on. Something happened right now with my visual. Give me a second on my computer. I don't know what's going on with my technical difficulties today. It's bugging out. But let's get back to it. I hope nobody left on YouTube. I don't know. My camera just went out on YouTube. I don't know what's going on. I'm telling you, these past couple of days with my technical difficulties between the podcast and now, this is why I went live today, to make sure everything is up and running properly. But my bad. Let's get back into it.
We may not see these particular concerns as the final answers to our problems. We will never run for political office, but we will endorse and support those candidates who are acting in the true interest of the people. We may even provide campaign workers for them and do voter registration and basic precinct work. This would not be out of a commitment to electoral politics. However, it would be our way of bringing the will of the people to bear on situations in which they are interested. We will also hold such candidates responsible to the community no matter how far removed their offices may be from the community. So we lead the people by following their interests with a view toward raising their consciousness to see beyond limited goals.
Listen up.
When Eldridge joined the party, it was after the police confrontation, which left him fixated with the either-or attitude. This was that either the community picked up the gun with the party, or else they were cowards and there was no place for them. He did not realize that if the people did not relate to the party, then there was no way that the Black Panther Party could make any revolution, for the record shows that the people are the makers of the revolution and of world history.
Right.
Sometimes there are those who express personal problems in political terms, and if they are eloquent, then these personal problems can sound very political. We charge Eldridge Cleaver with this. Much of it is probably beyond his control because it is so personal. But we did not know that when he joined the party, he was doing so only because of that act in front of ramparts.
Listen.
We weren't trying to prove anything to ourselves. All we were trying to do at that particular point was to defend Betty Shabazz, but we were praised by the people. Under the influence of Eldridge Cleaver, the party gave the community no alternative for dealing with us except by picking up the gun. This move was reactionary simply because the community was not prepared to do that at that point. Instead of being a cultural cult group, we became, by that act, a revolutionary cult group. But this is a basic contradiction because revolution is a process, and if the acts you commit do not fall within the scope of the process, then they are non-revolutionary. What the revolutionary movement and the Black community need is a very strong structure. This structure can only exist with the support of the people, and it can only get its support through serving them. This is why we have the Service to the People program, the most important thing in the party. We will serve their needs so that they can survive through this oppression. Then when they are ready to pick up the gun, serious business will happen. Eldridge Cleaver influenced us to isolate ourselves from the Black community so that it was war between the oppressor and the Black Panther Party, not war between the oppressor and the oppressed community. The Black Panther Party defected from the community long before Eldridge defected from the party. Our hookup with white radicals did not give us access to the white community because they do not guide the white community. The Black community does not relate to them, so we were left in a twilight zone where we could not enter the Black community with any real political education programs. Yet we were not doing anything to mobilize whites. We had no influence in raising the consciousness of the Black community, and that is the point where we defected. We went through a free speech movement in the party, which was unnecessary and only further isolated us from the Black community. We had all sorts of profanity in our paper, and every other word that dropped from our lips was profane. This did not happen before I was jailed, because I would not stand for it. But Eldridge's influence brought it about. I do not blame him altogether. I blame the party because the party accepted it. Eldridge was never fully in the leadership of the party. Even after Bobby was snatched away from us, I did not place Eldridge in a position of leadership because he was not interested in that. I made David Hilliard administrator of programs. I knew that Eldridge would not do anything to lift the consciousness of the comrades in the party, but I knew that he could make a contribution, and I pressed him to do so. I pressed him to write and edit the paper, but he wouldn't. The paper did not even come out every week until Eldridge went to jail. But Eldridge Cleaver did make great contributions to the Black Panther Party with his writing and speaking. We want to keep this in mind because there is a positive and negative side to everything. The correct handling of a revolution is not to offer the people an either-or ultimatum. Instead, we must gain the support of the people through serving their needs. Then, when the police or any other agency of repression tries to destroy the program, the people will move to a higher level of consciousness and action. Then the organized structure can guide the people to the point where they are prepared to deal in many ways.
Listen.
This was the strategy we used in 1966 when the people related to us in a positive way. So the Black Panther Party has reached a contradiction with Eldridge Cleaver, and he has defected from the party because we would not order everyone into the streets tomorrow to make a revolution. We recognize that this is impossible because our dialectical ideology and our analysis of concrete conditions indicate that declaring a spontaneous revolution is a fantasy. The people are not at that point now. This contradiction and conflict may seem unfortunate to some, but it is a part of the dialectical process. The resolution of this contradiction has freed us from incorrect analyses and emphases. We are now free to move toward the building of a community structure that will become a true voice of the people, promoting their interests in many ways. We can continue to push our basic survival programs. We can continue to serve the people as advocates of their true interests. We can truly become a political revolutionary vehicle which will lead the people to a higher level of consciousness so that they will know what they must really do in their quest for freedom. Then they will have the courage to adopt any means necessary to seize the time and obtain that freedom.
Listen up. Now you gonna tell me a lot of what he's saying in this passage is not relevant as far as the gun, the contradictions, and even the state of the masses, even when it comes to revolution and reality? I don't think he's too far off. A lot of what he's saying, I've been saying, especially in today's time. And like he said, a lot of people are not going to be happy with that response. But when you really look at the reality of the masses, do you think the masses is really ready to go out in a revolution and lose everything or possibly lose everything? We got a lot to gain, but we also got a lot to lose. And I'm not saying get down. I'm not saying lay down. What I'm saying is understand the consequences, right? Let's not set ourselves up for failure if we understand those conditions a lot of people are not ready for. Just saying. And I'm not Captain Puerto Rico, so you're not illegal like yo soy guapo. I'm just saying. We got to have a reality.
Statement. May 1st, 1971. The original...
Really quick, everybody on TikTok, we are live on YouTube. So if you guys came in a little late or you want to catch up a little bit, we are on YouTube. There might be a delay process for like 5 minutes or 2-3 minutes because my camera went off for a second. So you probably picked that up on the live stream when you go back and watch it. But it's not just this episode, this portion of the book. You can go back on prior episodes. I think this is the 5th live we're doing on the Huey P Newton Reader, so you can catch it from the beginning up until now. So anybody that's on TikTok, you guys want to go follow me on YouTube, it is AfroTaino88. You can go check out the prior episodes under the live section category, not the videos, the live section category. But let's get back into this statement. I gotta go run into the kitchen real quick, but I'm gonna let this play out.
The Black Panther Party was to serve the needs of the oppressed people in our communities and defend them against their oppressors. When the party was initiated, we knew that these goals would raise the consciousness of the people and motivate them to move more firmly for their total liberation. We also recognized that we live in a country which has become one of the most repressive governments in the world, repressive in communities all over the world. We did not expect such a repressive government to stand idly by while the Black Panther Party went forward to the goal of serving the people. We expected repression. We knew as a revolutionary vanguard, repression would be the reaction of our oppressors, but we recognized that the task of the revolutionist is difficult and his life is short. We were prepared then, as we are now, to give our all in the interest of oppressed people. We expected the repression to come from outside forces which have long held our communities in subjection. However, the ideology of dialectical materialism helped us to understand that the contradictions surrounding the party would create a force that would move us toward our goals. We also expected contradictions within the party, for the oppressors use infiltrators and provocateurs to help them reach their evil ends. Even when the contradictions come from formerly loyal members of the party, we see them as part of the process of development, rather than in the negative terms the oppressors' media use to interpret them. Above all, we knew that through it all, the party would survive. The party would survive because it had the love and support of the people, who saw their true interests expressed in the actions of the party. The party would also survive because it would be a political vehicle which continued to voice the interests of the people and serve as their advocates.
Listen.
The importance of a structured political vehicle has always been apparent to us. When we went to Sacramento, we went for the purpose of educating the people and building of a permanent political vehicle to serve their true interests. In our most recent communication with both the North and South Vietnamese revolutionary governments, they pointed out that they understood what we were doing and saw it as the correct strategy. They said that a structured organization is related to politics as a shadow to a man. We recognize that the political machine in America has consistently required Black people to support it through paying taxes and fighting in wars. But that same machine consistently refuses to serve the interests of the Black community. One of the problems is that the community does not have a structured organization or vehicle which serves its needs and represents the people's interest. You can no more have effective politics without a structured organization than you can have a man without his shadow. Oppressed Black people, the lumpen proletariat, did not have a structured organization to represent their true interests until the Black Panther Party arose from within the community, motivated by the needs and conditions of the people. Across the country, there have been coalitions of Black people and Black caucuses, but these have not served the people as political vehicles. They have merely served as bourgeois structures to get Black candidates into political office. Once elected, the machinery used to thrust these people into office simply passed out of existence or became ineffective insofar as serving the true interests of the Black oppressed people. A truly revolutionary vehicle, which will survive the repression it encounters daily, is made up of a number of characteristics. First of all, there is a small but dedicated cadre of workers who are willing to devote their full time to the goals of the organization. Secondly, there is a distinct organized structure through which the cadre can function. It is this combination of structure and dedicated cadre which can maintain the machinery for meeting the people's needs.
Listen.
In this way, a printing press can be maintained to review the events of the day and interpret them in a manner which serves the people. Information can be circulated about daily phenomena to inform the people of their true meaning. Programs of service can be carried out to deliver to the people the basic needs that are not met elsewhere because the lumpen proletariat are the victims of oppression and exploitation.
Listen.
A cadre and a structure, however, are not what make the political vehicle a revolutionary one.
No.
It is the revolutionary concepts which define and interpret phenomena and establish the goals toward which the political vehicle will work. A revolutionary vehicle is in fact a revolutionary concept set into motion by a dedicated cadre through a particular organized structure. Such a vehicle can survive repression because it can move in the necessary manner at the appropriate time. It can go underground if the conditions require, and it can rise up again.
Right.
But it will always be motivated by love and dedication to the interests of the oppressed communities.
Right.
Therefore, the people will ensure its survival, for only in that survival are their needs serviced. The structured and organized vehicle will guarantee the weathering of the test of internal and external contradictions. The responsibility of such a political vehicle is clear. It is to function as a machine which serves the true interests of the oppressed people. This means that it must be ever aware of the needs of the communities of the oppressed and develop and execute the necessary programs to meet those needs. The Black Panther Party has done this through its basic 10-point program. However, we recognize that revolution is a process, and we cannot offer the people conclusions. We must be ready to respond creatively to new conditions and new understandings. Therefore, we have developed our free breakfast program, our free health clinics, our clothing and shoe programs, and our buses to prisons program, as well as others, responding to the obvious needs of Black people.
What he's saying is you have to be more open-minded. If you're going to serve the people and cater to the people, you got to listen to the people. You have to relate to the people. If you want the people to relate to you, you have to be relatable to the people. So we can't just say we speak for the masses if we don't walk with the masses, we don't talk with the masses, we don't cry with the masses, we don't have the experience of what the masses has. It's hard for the masses to be able to relate to what we're trying to offer. That's just my opinion.
The overwhelmingly favorable response to these programs in every community is evidence that they are serving the true interests of the people. Serving the true interests of the people also means that the political vehicle must stand between the people.
And I said this earlier. These are Huey's words himself. This is not somebody who studied him. This is why I say we have to stop. Yo, what I see a lot of individuals do is that they glorify our revolutionaries, our leaders, but they never took the time to read what they had to say. We're so okay with somebody else giving an interpretation of what they said instead of listening to what they said. Because I'm gonna be honest, a lot of groups out there that's claim they follow exactly what he's talking about are not living what he's actually breaking down. They've created their own analogy. Like I seen individuals even today in the modern days activist world talking about we won't follow the Eldridge Cleaver model, like that's gonna be able to bring more unity and that's not gonna cause more destruction. Again, you live by the gun, you die by the gun. I learned that shit in the streets. It doesn't take a rocket science to tell you what you put out to the universe is exactly what you're gonna receive. And I hear that we on a payback time because all the shit we done went through. But just remember, for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. It's not about if you ready for it. Are the people around you ready for it?
The oppressive forces which prey upon them in such a manner that the administrators will have to give the appropriate response. Such articulation requires us to have...
Yo, salute to everybody on TikTok. I appreciate all the love. Salute everybody on YouTube. We are live on YouTube for everybody on TikTok. If you want to be able to catch up, if you missed some of the episode, or you want to go catch up to the beginning of the book, this is part 5. So you can go check out in the live section stream, the live streams, and you can go down to to the beginning and go catch up. The hiccups,
which will express the interests of the people and interpret phenomena for them. Again, the existence of such a political vehicle is justified only so long as it serves the true interests of the people. Serving the true interests of the people, however, does not mean that the vehicle is simply a reflector of public opinion. For the opinions of the people have often been molded and directed against their true interests by slick politicians and exploitative educators. Their diversion tactics often lead the people down blind alleys or onto tangents which take them away from their true goals. We can easily see this when we apply the concept of American democracy to the Black community. Democracy in America, bourgeois democracy, means nothing more than the domination of the majority over the minority. That is why Black people can cast votes all year long, but if the majority is against us, we suffer. Then the politicians and educators try to deceive the community with statements such as, it's ruled by the majority.
Yo, it's hard to admit it, but what he said right now is so relevant.
But the rights of the minority are protected. If in fact participating in the democratic process in America were in the interest of the Black community, there would be no need for a free breakfast program. There would be no need for free health clinics or any of the other programs we have developed to meet the people's needs. The rights of the
really quick, BGP, this is the Huey P. Newton reader. It's right here, right above my head. I got it on TikTok. It's right above my head.
Protected by the standards of a bourgeois government, and anything which is not in their interest is not permitted. This may be democratic for the majority, but for the minority, it has the same effect as fascism. When the majority decreed that we should be slaves, we were slaves. Where was the democracy in slavery for us? When the majority decreed that we should pay taxes, fight and die in wars, and be given inferior and racist education against our interests, we got all of these things. Where is democracy for us in any of that? Our children still die, Our youth still suffer from malnutrition, our middle-aged people still suffer from sickle cell anemia, and our elderly still face unbearable poverty and hardship because they reach the twilight period of their lives with nothing to sustain them through these difficult times. Where is the democracy in any of this for Black people? Democracy means only that the majority will use us when they need us and cast us aside when they do not need us. A true understanding of the working and effect of American democracy for Black people will reveal most clearly that it is just the same as fascism for us. Our true interests and needs are not being served. The political vehicle of the people must be guided by a consistent ideology which represents nothing more than a systematic and organized set of principles for analyzing and interpreting objective phenomena. An ideology can only be accepted as valid if it delivers a true understanding of the phenomena that affect the lives of the people. The development of a wide variety of truths about the community, its internal development, and the external forces surrounding it will lead then to a philosophy that will help orient us toward goals that are in the true interests of the people. The Black Panther Party was born in a period of stress when Black people were moving away from the philosophy and strategy of nonviolent action toward sterner actions. We dared to believe that we could offer the community a permanent political vehicle which would serve their needs and advocate their interests. We have met many foes. We have seen many enemies. We have been slandered, kidnapped, gagged, jailed, and murdered. We know now more than ever before that the will of the people is greater than the technology and repression of those who are against the interests of the people. Therefore, we know that we can and will continue to serve and educate the people.
That was a heavy chapter right there. Listen, keep tapping the screen, keep sharing this live. We are live on TikTok and also live on YouTube. So anybody on TikTok who's coming in late, you want to be able to catch up later on, go check out the YouTube channel. This next chapter is about 34 minutes. This is probably going to be the last one I do. The other two are about 20 and 10. Another 30, that's about an hour, and I think that's good enough. We got 6 hours and 8 minutes left of the book so far. Give or take, by the end of this live, we'll have about 5.5. So maybe another 3 parts of this to go, but let's keep going. Tap that screen, share this live.
The relevance of the church. May 19, 1971. Since 1966, the Black Panther Party has gone through many changes. It has been transformed. I would like to talk to you about that and about contradictions.
Listen.
I would also like to talk about the Black Panther Party's relationship with the community as a whole and with the church in particular. Some time ago, when the party started, Bobby and I were interested in strengthening the Black community, rather its comprehensive set of institutions, because if there's one thing we lack, it is community. We do have one institution that has been around for some time, and that is the church. After a short, harmonious relationship with the church, in fact, a very good relationship, we were divorced from the church, and shortly after that, found ourselves out of favor with the whole Black community. We found ourselves in somewhat of a void, alienated from the whole community. We had no way of being effective as far as developing the community was concerned. The only way we could aid in that process of revolution, and revolution is a process rather than conclusion or a set of principles or any particular action, was by raising the consciousness of the community. Any conclusion or particular action that we think is revolution is really reaction, for revolution is a developmental process. It has a forward thrust which goes higher and higher as man becomes freer and freer. As man becomes freer, he knows more about the universe. He tends to control more, and he therefore gains more control over himself. That is what freedom is all about. I want now to talk about the mistakes that were made. I hate to call them mistakes because maybe they were necessary to bring about change in the party, the needed transformation. I am sure that we will have other kinds of contradictions in the future, some that we don't know about now. I am sure they will build up and hurl us into a new thing.
Self-critique and self-criticism is the number one key to success and not repeating the same dumb shit we do over and over and over again. Remember, doing the same mistakes over and over and over again is called what? Insanity.
The church also has been going through phases of development. It too has found itself somewhat isolated from the community.
Facts.
Today, the church is striving to get back into favor with the community.
That's true
Like
too.
the church, the Black Panther Party is also trying to reinstate itself with the community. A short time ago, there was an article in the Black Panther paper called "The Defection of Eldridge Cleaver from the Black Panther Party and the Defection of the Black Panther Party from the Black Community." I would like to concentrate now upon the defection of the party. That is the larger unit. I hate to place blame upon individuals in our party, particularly since they are always governed by a collective called the Central Committee.
Right.
Even when I disagree with the Central Committee, and I did much disagreeing and arguing when I was in prison, but I was outvoted, after the vote I supported the position of the party until the next meeting. I think, at first, that we have to have some organized apparatus in order to bring about the necessary change. The only time we leave our political machine or our institution altogether is when we feel that we cannot bring about the necessary change through the machine, and the very posture of the organization or the institution will strip us of our individual dignity. I felt that this was true of the party, and although it could be argued, I personally thought that the party should still be held together. I knew if I left, we would have to form a new party, a new institution, in order to be that spur or that guiding light in the community. Also, I would have to contend with new contradictions. We always say that contradictions are the ruling principle of the universe. I use that word time and time again because I think that it is responsible for much suffering. When things collide, they hurt, but collision is also responsible for development. Without contradictions, everything would be stagnant. Everything has an internal contradiction, including the church. Contradiction, or the strain of the lesser to subdue that which controls it, gives motion to matter. We see this throughout the universe in the physical as well as the biological world. We also see this in cultures. Development comes with the phenomenon we call acculturation. That is, two societies meet.
Yeah, I just want to throw out there, he may be speaking specifically to the black community right now, but the impact and what he's talking about did not only impact the black community. So I think we need to listen up and listen clearly, especially when he's talking about what he's talking about, because religion, Christianity impacted us all the same way. Just want to throw that out there.
And when their cultures collide because they have a contradiction, both are modified. The stronger shows less change and the weaker more change. All the time, the weaker is attempting to gain dominance over the stronger.
Facts.
But something happens. They both will never be the same again because they have reached a degree of synthesis. In other words, it is all working toward the truth of the Trinity. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. This principle of contradiction, this striving for harmony, operates in all of our disciplines. The Black Panther Party was formed because we wanted to oppose the evil in our community. Some of the members in the party were not refined. We were grasping for organization. It wasn't a college campus organization. It was basically an organization of the grassroots. And anytime we organize the most victimized of the victims, we run into a problem. To have a party or a church or any kind of institution, whether we like it or not, we have to have administrators. How an institution, organization, or the party in this case functions, as well as how effective it is, depends upon how knowledgeable and advanced in thinking the administrators are. We attempt to apply the administrative skills of our grassroots organization to the problems that are most frequently heard in the community. History shows that most of the parties that have led people out of their difficulties have had administrators with what we sometimes call the traits of the bourgeoisie or declassed intellectuals. They are the people who have gone through the established institutions, rejected them, and then applied their skills to the community. In applying them to the community, their skills are no longer bourgeoisie skills, but people's skills, which are transformed through the contradiction of applying what is usually bourgeoisie to the oppressed. That itself is a kind of transformation. In our party, we are not so blessed. History does not repeat itself. It goes on also transforming itself through its dialectical process. We see that the administrators of our party are victims who have not received that bourgeois training. So I will not apologize for our mistakes, our lack of a scientific approach to use and put into practice. It was a matter of not knowing, of learning, but also of starting out with a loss, a disadvantage that history has seldom seen.
Hold on. I don't know. I lost connection again. Yeah, give me a second. I don't know what's going on today, guys. Whoever's watching on YouTube gonna have to bear with me because I don't know what's going on over here on YouTube. My camera just keeps going out. I'm gonna rewind it 30 seconds so that way we can get everything back up and running and functioning. Let me just make sure everything is good up on here. Yeah, I don't know what's going on today, but listen, salute to everybody who's tapping in with us, everybody who's watching at home, whether on TikTok or on YouTube. I appreciate all the love and support, but I'm about to get right into it. There we go. The audio's back up.
History does not repeat itself. It goes on also transforming itself through its dialectical process. We see that the administrators of our party are victims who have not received that bourgeois training. So I will not apologize for our mistakes, our lack of a scientific approach to use and put into practice. It was a matter of not knowing, of learning, but also of starting out with a loss, a disadvantage that history has seldom seen. That is, a group attempting to influence and change the society so much while its own administrators were as much in the dark much of the time as the people that they were trying to change. In our party, we have now what we call the Ideological Institute, where we are teaching these skills, and we also invite those people who have received a bourgeois education to come and help us. However, we let them know that they will, by their contribution, make their need to exist, as they exist now, null and void. In other words, after we learn the skills, their bourgeois status will evaporate once the skills have been applied. As far as the church was concerned, the Black Panther Party and other community groups emphasized the political and criticized the spiritual. We said the church is only a ritual, it is irrelevant, and therefore we will have nothing to do with it. We said this in the context of the whole community being involved with the church on one level or another. That is one way of defecting from the community, and that is exactly what we did. Once we stepped outside of the church with that criticism, we stepped outside of the whole thing that the community was involved in, and we said, you follow our example. Your reality is not true, and you don't need it. Now, without judging whether the church is operating in a total reality, I will venture to say that if we judge whether the church is relevant to the total community, we would all agree that it is not. That is why it develops new programs to become more relevant so the pews will be filled on Sunday. The church is in its developmental process, and we believe it needs to exist. We believe this as a result of our new direction, which is an old direction as far as I am concerned, but we'll call it new because there has been a reversal in the dominance in the Central Committee of our party for reasons that you probably know about. So we do go to church, are involved in the church, and not in any hypocritical way. Religion, perhaps, is a thing that man needs at this time because scientists cannot answer all of the questions. As far as I am concerned, when all of the questions are not answered, when the extraordinary is not explained, when the unknown is not known, then there is room for God, because the unexplained and the unknown is God. We know nothing about God, really, and that is why as soon as the scientist develops or points out a new way of controlling a part of the universe, that aspect of the universe is no longer God. In other words, once when the thunder crashed, it was God clapping his hands together. As soon as we found out that thunder was not God, we said that God has other attributes, but not that one. In that way, we took for ourselves what was his before. But we still haven't answered all of the questions, so he still exists. And those scientists who say they can answer all of them are dishonest. We go into the church realizing that we cannot answer the questions at this time, that the answers will be delivered eventually, and we feel that when they are delivered, they will be explained in a way that we can understand and control. I went to church for years. My father is a minister, and I spent 15 years in the church. This was my life as a child. When I was going to church, I used to hear that God is within us and is, therefore, some part of us. That part of us that is mystical. And as man develops and understands more, he will approach God and finally reach heaven and merge with the universe. I've never heard one preacher say that there is a need for the church in heaven. The church would negate itself. As man approaches his development and becomes larger and larger, the church therefore becomes smaller and smaller because it is not needed any longer. Then, if we had ministers who would deal with the social realities that cause misery so that we can change them, man will become larger and larger. At that time, the God within will come out, and we can merge with him. Then we will be one with the universe. So I think it was rather arrogant of my party to criticize the community for trying to discover answers to spiritual questions. The only thing we will criticize in the future is when the church does not act upon the evils that cause man to get on his knees and humble himself in awe at that large force which he cannot control. But as man becomes stronger and stronger, and his understanding greater and greater, he will have a closer walk with thee. Note the song says walk, not crawl. So along with the church, we will all start again to control our lives and communities. Even with the Black church, we have to create a community spirit. We say that the church is an institution, but it is not a community. The sociological definition of a community is a comprehensive collection of institutions that delivers our whole life and within which we can reach most of our goals. We create it in order to carry out our desires, and it serves us. In the Black community, the church is an institution that we created, that we were allowed to create. The white church warred against us, but finally we won the compromise to worship as a unit, as a people, concerned with satisfying our own needs. The white church was not satisfying our needs in human terms because it felt that we were not human beings. So we formed our own. Through that negative thing, a positive thing evolved. We started to organize fraternities, anti-lynching groups, and so forth, but they still would not let our community exist. We came here in chains, and I guess they thought we were meant to stay in chains. But we have begun to organize a political machine to develop a community so that we can have an apparatus to fight back. You cannot fight back individually against an organized machine. We will work with the church to establish a community which will satisfy most of our needs so that we can live and operate as a group. The Black Panther Party, with its survival programs, plans to develop the institutions in the community. We have a clothing factory we are just erecting on 3rd Street, where we will soon give away about 300 to 400 new articles of clothing each month. And we can do this by robbing Peter to pay Paul. What we will do is start to make golfing bags under contract to a company, and with the surplus, we will buy material to make free clothes. Our members will do this. We will have no overhead because of our collective. We'll exploit our collective by making them work free. We will do this not just to satisfy ourselves, like the philanthropist, or to serve, or to save someone from going without shoes, even though this is a part of the cause of our problem, but to help the people make the revolution. We will give the process a forward thrust. If we suffer genocide, we won't be around to change things. So in this way, our survival program is very practical. What we are concerned with is the larger problem. Therefore, we will be honest and say that we will do like the churches. We will negate our necessity for existing. After we accomplish our goals, the Black Panther Party will not need to exist because we will have already created our heaven right here on earth. What we are going to do is administer to the community the things they need in order to get their attention, in order to organize them into a political machine. The community will then look to the party and look to those people who are serving their needs in order to give them guidance and direction, whether it is political, whether it is judicial, or whether it is economic. Our real thing is to organize across the country. We have 38 chapters and branches, and I would like to inform you that the so-called split is only a myth, that it does not exist. We lost 2 chapters in that so-called split, and I will tell you that the burden is off my shoulders. I was glad to lose them because it was a yoke for me. I was frozen. Even though I couldn't make a move, I wouldn't get out of the whole thing then because certain people had such an influence over the party. For me to have taken that stand would have been individualism. Now we're about 3 years behind in our 5-year plan, but we will now move to organize the community around the survival programs. We have a shoe factory that we're opening up on 14th and Jefferson. The machines and everything else were donated. We'll use it to get inmates out of prison because most of us learned how to make shoes in prison. So it will serve 2 purposes. We can make positions in the shoe factory available and thereby get somebody out on parole. And since the parolees must agree to give a certain amount of shoes away each week, we will have a right to wear shoes program. We'll point out that everyone in the society should have shoes, and we should not have a situation like the one in Beaufort County, South Carolina, where 70% of the children suffer brain damage because of malnutrition. They have malnutrition because of the combination of not enough food and parasites in the stomach. The worms eat up half the food that the children take in. Why? Because the ground is infested with the eggs of the worms, and the children don't have shoes to wear. So as soon as we send a doctor there to cure them, they get the parasites again. We think that the shoe program is a very relevant thing, first to help them stay alive, then to create conditions in which they can grow up and work out a plan to change things. If they have brain damage, they will never be revolutionists because they will have already been killed. That is genocide in itself. We will inform this government, this social order, that it must administer to its people because it is supposed to be a representative government which serves the needs of the people. Then serve them. If it does not do this, then it should be criticized. What we will not do in the future is jump too far ahead and say that the system absolutely cannot give us anything. That is not true. The system can correct itself to a certain extent. What we are interested in is its correcting itself as much as it can. After that, if it doesn't do everything that the people think necessary, then we'll think about reorganizing things. To be very honest, I think there is great doubt whether the present system can do this. But until the people feel the same way I feel, then I would be rather arrogant to say dump the whole thing, just as we were arrogant to say dump the church. Let's give it a chance. Let's work with it in order to squeeze as many contributions and compromises out of all the institutions as possible, and then criticize them after the fact. We'll know when that time comes, when the people tell us so. We have a program attempting to get the people to do all they will do. It is too much to ask the people to do all they can do, even though they can do everything. But that is not the point. The point is, how do we get them to do all they will do until they eventually get to the place where they will have to be doing all they can? We organized the party when we saw that growing out of the movement was what was called a cultural cult group. We defined a cultural cult group as an organization that discussed itself as a political organization, but was really more interested in the cultural rituals of Africa in the 1100s before contact with the Europeans. Instead of administering to the community and organizing it, they would rather wear boobas, get African names, and demand that the community do the same, and do nothing about the survival of the community. Sometimes they say, well, if we get our culture back, then all things will be solved. This is like saying to be regenerated and born again is to solve everything. We know that this is not true. Then the party became just as closed as the cultural cultist group. Many churches are very reactionary and can be described as religious cults. They go through many rituals, but they're divorced from reality. Even though we have many things in common with them, we say they isolate themselves from reality because they're so miserable and reality is so hard to take. We know that operating within reality does not mean that we accept it. We are operating within it so that the reality can be changed. For what we did as revolutionists was abstract, and the people are always real. But we know that reality is changing all the time, and what we want to do is harness those forces that are causing the change to direct them to a desirable goal. In other words, developments will continue, but we have no guarantee that they will be developments that allow man to live. We have no guarantee that the bomb won't be dropped. But we know that there are certain ways that we can plan for the new reality. In order to do this, we have to take some control over the present. So the people who withdraw, like the religious cultist group, do the same thing as the cultural cultist group. These are words that we have coined. The Panthers are always coining words because we have to keep defining the new reality, the new phenomena. The old words confuse us sometimes because things have changed so much. So we try to stay abreast by developing or stipulating definitions. The old lexical definitions become so outdated after the qualitative leap, the transformation, that it does not match at all what we are talking about now. One new word related to what we have been talking about describes something I was guilty of. I was guilty of this when I offered the black troops to Vietnam. I won't talk about whether it was morally right or wrong, but I will say that anything said or done by a revolutionist that does not spur or give the forward thrust to the process of revolution is wrong. Remember that the people are the makers of history. The people make everything in their society. They are the architects of the society, and if you don't spur them on, then I don't care what phrases you use or whether they are political or religious. You cannot be classified as being relevant to that process. If you know you're wrong and do certain things anyway, then you're reactionary because you are very guilty. Some of us didn't know. I keep searching myself to see whether I knew we were going wrong. I couldn't influence the Central Committee, and maybe I should have risked being charged with an individual violation and said that they didn't know. I think most of them didn't know, so they're not as guilty as I am. I'm probably more guilty than anyone. But anyway, the new word that describes what we went into for a short length of time, a couple of years, is revolutionary cultism. The revolutionary cultist uses words of social change. He uses words about being interested in the development of society. He uses that terminology, you see, but his actions are so far divorced from the process of revolution and organizing the community that he is living in a fantasy world. So we talk to each other on the campuses, or we talk to each other in the secrecy of the night, concentrating upon weapons, thinking these things will produce change without the people themselves. Of course, people do courageous things and call themselves the vanguard, but the people who do things like that are either heroes or criminals. They are not the vanguard because the vanguard means spearhead, and the spearhead has to spearhead something. If nothing is behind it, then it is divorced from the masses and is not the vanguard. I'm going to be heavily criticized now by the revolutionary cultists, and probably criticized even more in the future because I view the process as going in stages. I feel that we can't jump from A to Z. We have to go through all of the development. So even though I see a thing is not the answer, I don't think it's dishonest to involve myself in it for the simple reason that the people tend to take not one step higher, they take a half step higher. Then they hang on to what they view as the reality because they can't see that reality is constantly changing. When they finally see the changes, qualitatively, they don't know why or how it happened. Part of the reason reality changes around them is because they are there. They participate whether they like it or not. What we will do now is involve ourselves in anything or any stage of development in the community, support that development, and try to introduce some insight into it. Then we will work very hard with the people in the community and with this institution so that it can negate itself. We will be honest about this, and we hope they are honest too and realize that everything is negated eventually. This is how we go on to higher levels. I was warned when I got up here that it would be appropriate to have a question and answer period, so I guess we should start now because I'm subject to go on and on. Question. I would like to know, in your reevaluation of your former stance in relationship to the community, in what ways do you expect to merge or bring together the community of the Catholic Church into the Black Panther Party? Newton. First, we can't change the realities, direct them, or harness their forces until we know them. We have to gather information. We can gather information about the church by experiencing the church. As a matter of fact, this is how we gain facts. Through empirical evidence, observation, and experience. In order to do this, we have to go to the church. You see, the only laboratory in society we have is the community itself, and we view ourselves not only as scientists, but also as activists. Now, we say we try to merge theory with practice, so we're going to churches now. I went to church last week for the first time in 10 years, I guess. We took our children with us. We have a youth institute, the Samuel Napier Youth Institute. We have about 30 children now, and we took them to church and involved ourselves. We plan to involve ourselves in many community activities, going through the behavior the church goes through in order to contribute to the community. We also hope to influence the church, as I'm sure the church will influence us. Remember that we said that even when whole societies and cultures meet, they are both modified by each other. And I am saying that the very fact that we're there is the new ingredient in the church, and we know that we will be affected and hope that they will be affected. But I warn you that we hope to have more effect than they. Just briefly, I mentioned our youth institute. We have children from 3 to 14 years old. Most of them have already been kicked out of schools, and we have a shortage of facilities because the hardcore Black community is just an aggregate now. People who happen to be Black. We are teaching them first what I mentioned earlier, bourgeois skills. It is necessary for us to learn these skills in order to understand the phenomena around us, the society. On the other hand, we don't like the way the skills have been used, so we're going to use them a different way. Thirdly, our children are not going to withdraw. I don't like parochial schools. I don't like separate schools. But I think that sometimes you have to use that strategy. For example, the Black Panther Party is a Black organization. We know that we live in a world of many cultures and ethnic groups, and we all interconnect in one way or another. Yes. We say that we are the contradiction to the reactionary Western values, but we cannot separate because we're here. Technology is too far advanced for us to isolate ourselves in any geographical location. The jet can get there too fast, and so can the early bird TV set. So what we have to do is share the control of these devices. So far as our children are concerned, the only reason they are at this separate school is because the public schools were not giving them the correct education. They can hardly learn to read and write. I don't want them to end up as I did. I only learned how to read after I was 17, and that must not happen to them. I've only been reading for about 10 years or so, and that is not very good. I still don't read very well. Our plan is not to have our children graduate from our school and live in a fantasy. Our effort is to keep them in there just as long as it will take for them to organize the school and make it relevant. In other words, we are going to send them back into the wilderness, but we're going to send them with their purse and their scribes with them this time. Question. When David Hilliard spoke to the National Committee of Black Churchmen that met in Berkeley, He called the preachers who were gathered there a bunch of bootlicking pimps and motherfuckers, a comment that never should have been made public anyway.
F1.
And he threatened that if the preachers did not come around, that the Panthers would off some of the preachers. If you're not able to influence the black church as much as you think, will the Panther Party return to this particular stance? Newton. The Black Panther Party will not take this separate individual stand. We'll only take the stand of the community because we're interested in what the community will do to liberate themselves. We will not be arrogant, and we would not have the most rudimentary knowledge if we did not know that we alone cannot bring about change. It was very wrong and almost criminal for some people in the party to make the mistake to think that the Black Panther Party could overthrow even the police force. It ended up with the war between the police and the Panthers. And if there is a war, it needs to be between the community and the reactionary establishment, or else we are isolating ourselves. As for what David Hilliard said, what he did was alienate you. That kind of alienation put us in a void where blood was spilled from one end of this country to the other, our blood, while the community watched. Our help watched on, you see? But it was more our fault than theirs because we were out there saying that we were going to lead them into a change. But we cannot lead them into a change if they will not go. As a matter of fact, we cannot exist individually if we don't band together to resist the genocide against all of us. So just as I criticized David Hilliard, I criticized myself because I knew that stuff was going on and I argued against it. But I didn't leave the party. Finally, the change came about. And so what I am saying is that I understand. And the reason that I didn't leave was that it wasn't an outrage to my humanity, even though I cringed every time. Because I understood that he did it not out of hatred, but love. He did it because he was outraged by the church's inactivity, as you are outraged. Not you personally, but you in the plural, at this situation. And he was outraged, of course, because of your isolation. So we are all in the same boat. And when we end up in the same boat, that means we are unified.
Very, very, very powerful. Very powerful. Yo, I appreciate everybody tapping in. I know on YouTube, salute to everybody who stuck with me on YouTube. I had a little bit of technical difficulties, but you guys rode out with me. I really appreciate everybody that's on TikTok. Please don't forget to go subscribe on YouTube, AfroTaino88. So if you missed parts of the episode or you missed parts of the book and you want to go back and listen, I think this is part 5. So if you go to the live stream section on my profile on YouTube, just go to the lives and all the lives are there. I think the 2 books I did was not Pedro Risu Campos, War Against All Puerto Ricans. That we did it in full in its entirety. It's up there. You can go listen to that. And the Huey P Newton Reader. And I got a couple of books on deck. This is the first time that I'm actually recording them and putting them on YouTube, so you guys could go back and actually go watch them. I do believe in socialism, free education, free housing, free healthcare. So I try to do my part. So salute to everybody. Really quick, I started it with my poem, and I think I'm going to end it out with my poem. Since I got a couple of people in here, if you guys are going to rock out with me for a little while, I'm going to let my poem play out. I'm not going to show you guys the visual because I got my iPad right in front of me, and I don't have this set up to do that. But I'm going to play it out. Hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you guys like it. Remember, all my gifts and donations is going to AfroTaino Inc. It is a publishing company that I'm trying to put out. I have a couple of books that I've been working on that I'm ready to release. But again, I'm trying to put this publishing company together so that way I'll be able to keep my intellectual property and I'll be able to expand what I'm trying to do when it comes to my literature, not just for myself, but black and brown, and indigenous scholars and writers and, all of that. So if you guys want to donate, the link is in the GoFundMe is in the bio, but all my gifts and donations will be going to that until I can start that up again. I think I'm gonna do maybe another month of fundraising on that, and then I gotta shift over to the Back to Borinquen because that is a priority for us. But without further ado, I'm gonna play out Puerto Rican Resurrection. You can also find it on YouTube on the New Ever Young Lords page. So if you guys want to go check it out on YouTube, go check it out. I'm gonna play the audio for y'all. I have the visual, but you guys don't. Sorry.
Past couple of years hasn't been easy. Good, bad, or indifferent. It was worth it.
Yeah, hold on both platforms, on YouTube and TikTok. Let's end it out with a bang. I'm playing one of my joints. Help me out here. I appreciate all the love and support. But let's get the likes up there. Let's get the taps up there. Let's end this out with a bang. It's a 4-minute, little video.
These past couple of years hasn't been easy. Good, bad, or indifferent. It was worth it. Throughout my journey, I had so many inspirations, so many things that made me see things in a different light, even view myself from a different perspective, understanding that I don't have to be just another statistic, that I can seek to be who I want to be, not who they set out for me to be. With that being said, this is my response to the legendary Pedro Petri's Puerto Rican obituary, Puerto Rican resurrection. Hold up, what's going on? We've let too much time pass. It's been going on for far too long, struggling just to survive. Things seem so wrong. We worked, we were always on time. We were never late, just trying to survive. If it wasn't for one, Miguel, Milagro, Olga, Manuel, I would still be in denial. All dying for an American dream, waiting for their lottery numbers to hit, the promotion that never came, and a system that never gave a fuck from the beginning. So understanding and learning everything they struggled through, why do we continue to keep the cycle going? While screaming, yo soy boricua, pa que tú lo sepa. Please tell me, what good does that do if we continue to contribute to the system that has us where we're at? And I'm not saying you got to be the next Captain Puerto Rico, I'm not saying all that. But let's look at the facts. So from 1493 until 1898, Spain ruled the island of Borinquen, and within that time, we'd had massive genocide. So many people died on both sides. And what do I mean by both sides? Our Afro and Taino side that we could never deny because we hold with so much pride everything they went through just to survive, while the conquistadors took the whole island on a ride, committing so many criminal acts that words can never describe. 1898, here comes big old Tío Sam, el savior de Puerto Rico, decreasing the currency by 40%. Cause who needs to survive when you got Tío Sam's checks by your side? Can't forget about the imposement of citizenship, forcing us to rely, while Tío Sam takes a ride on the road of taxation without representation, and that comes with a lot of exploitation. Oh, what a great nation of which we reside. But what I realize, if you remove us from history, we don't see a future. This is why it's important to understand who is Pedro Avisu Campos, who is Arturo Alfonso Chambre, who is Lolita Lebron, who is Ramon Emeterio Betances, who is Mariana Bracetti, who are the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, who are the Young Lords, all representation of greatness, all in their own right. But we are them and they are us, fighting for the same cause, liberation, self-determination, with no limitations. So we won't be dying, hating the make-believe steaks or the bulletproof rice and beans, or waiting for the supervisor to die to get that promotion. We will die freeing our bodies without having to use physical strength, but by arming ourselves with knowledge and education, not just for now, but for the future. Viva Puerto Rico libre, pa'lante, siempre pa'lante.
Yo, I really hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm probably going to be playing the shit out of that. Again, I'm very proud of myself. I just started getting into poetry maybe within the last year or so. And the first book that was gifted to me by Mickey Melendez was Pedro Petri's, collections. And the first poem in that book is Puerto Rican Obituary. And that's what got me inspired to write that, And it's not like combating what he's saying, but acknowledgement and understanding to what he's saying, and taking the foundation that was left before our upcoming and applying that. Like, yeah, we see it, we know the issues, we see the discrepancies, but we not gonna go out the way you think we gonna go out. We gonna take what you say, we gonna apply this method to be able to uplift ourselves from our situation. That's why it's called Puerto Rican Resurrection. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's getting late. I'm starving. I gotta go finish cooking up over there. But I'm gonna catch you later. Peace, blessing, positivity, and pa'lante, siempre pa'lante. Peace. I'm out of here.